And I will go ahead and start too, just for the sake of time.
Transcripts, I hope.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go ahead and get us started since it is 11. Thank y'all for attending this presentation today. Our title is Pandemic Partnerships, Computers, and Cataloging. I am one of the hosts for this session. I'm also joined by Zaria White, who is a circulation specialist at Catawba Valley Community College, Anita McCrary, who is our outreach and instruction librarian, Daniel Clanton, who is our Chief Technology Officer, and I am the library director. If you would like, you can remove the closed captioning at the bottom of your screen by clicking the arrow next to Live Transcript CC and selecting Hide Subtitle. This session is being recorded. All chats will also be recorded, and this includes private chats. Recordings of the sessions will be emailed to all participants, all registrants, and we will be monitoring the chat so you can enter your questions and comments there. Please make sure you use everyone if you send a chat or have a question for the group. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anita.
Thank you, Stacy. I appreciate you taking time to be with us today for the webinar. I think we can all agree that we have learned a lot about our institutions and one another and a lot about ourselves over the past year, and we've had to learn how to adapt. I am going to provide a presentation on the pandemic partnerships, how the library staff is coordinated with IT and how IT has been so great in helping us meet the technology needs of our staff, our faculty, our students over the course of the past year during the very rapid transition to the all-on learning platform. A lot of my presentation will be just a photo gallery, so I'll walk you through it. But I want to make sure that everyone knows that there's a link in the chat that I just put in there that is to the LibGuide that accompanies this presentation. So later, if you go through and you say, oh, I'd like to have that document to modify it for our use, those are all linked into the LibGuide that I've got there, as well as a video of the presentation. If you wanted to share it with others, that's perfectly fine. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen. Let's see here. It looks like the host has disabled participant screen sharing. Stacy, is there something you can do to help me there?
That is actually a Patrice question. Patrice, could you give Anita permission? Let me send her a chat.
Send her a quick chat. One of the things that I'll say before we get started with while we're working this out is, you know, I have learned so much about our campus and some of our coworkers over the course of the past year and how we've done this. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done and how we've all worked together as a team. So I just can't say enough about our folks, everybody. Okay. Stacy, do you think you could pull it up on your screen to share?
I think that I can. Give me 1 second.
Sure. If it's one thing we've learned over the course year, it's how to remain calm during tech crisis. Oh, okay, Stacy, I think I've got my screen up. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Fantastic. All right, so I'm just going to start here with the first slide. Pandemic partnerships, the campus library and the IT program, technology distribution and collection, and it has been a lot, a massive enterprise. My name is Anita McCrary. I am the Outreach and Instruction Librarian here at Catawba Valley Community College. And with us, we have our Chief Technology Officer, Daniel, who is here to respond to any questions that you guys might have regarding the tech side of this enterprise. And if you have questions, just kindly unmute yourself and pop in or just put them in the chat. Stacy's going to be monitoring that for us. We also have our software technician, Latrice Parker, who has been very kind and patient with me, making sure that we get what we needed with regard to downloading the software for different items and getting those updates done. And we have our technology inventory coordinator, Daniel Connor, and our computer technician, Chris Fry, who would not let me have a profile picture of them. So I gave them little cartoon drawings. They are super great guys and have been just awesome. Of course, we have our library folks. We have Stacy Wilson. Stacy and I have been here in the library the entire year, keeping it open and keeping things moving. We had a couple of retirements over the year, and so Zaria was able to join us in October, and we're very tickled to have her on board, and she has learned fast. And Amanda joined us a few weeks later in November, and she's our library technical services specialist. Of course, we have our work study student, Franny. She has been a great help to us, and we're glad to have her on board. And then we have Levada the Librarian. I don't know how we could have gotten by this past year without having a playful sense of getting through the day without losing our minds. Okay, so traditionally here at CVCC, our IT practices have been that most IT issues were managed directly by the IT department. The only tech items that we had in the library for students were just the traditional desktops and a printer and a few headphones. We did have a few additional tech items for faculty members, including 3 digital cameras with tripods and 35 iPads they could check out for their classes if needed. And a number of the math faculty really made use of that for their classes. And if there was any kind of a problem with our tech, we just submitted a ticket to IT and they would resolve it. And that was pretty much it. You know, I don't think any of us here in the library were tech experts, but we certainly know a lot about it now. Not experts, but more than we started with. Of course, as with everyone here, everybody had to move fast to transition for the pandemic last March. We needed a quick and ready access to tech items that students, faculty, and staff needed to accommodate the all online learning platform. And one thing we learned quickly was we made a lot of assumptions that people had what they needed when they did not. They may not have had a webcam or internet service or things like that. So we had to figure that out. We needed an accounting of inventory. We needed space to stage and store the tech items. We had to create a technology agreement so that people would be responsible for the items that they checked out. And we needed consistent communication modes of who needed what and when and where and how they were going to get it. Day-to-day communication between IT and library staff, ongoing forms of patron communication, records of circulation were needed, distribution and collection. We needed PPE and social distancing practice, things we never had to think about before, cleaning and quarantine processes. And, you know, at the top of the list, speed, efficiency, and accountability. And we, we had to come up with it pretty much overnight. And we did it by working together. So this is our crew. And yeah, I like to say that we are a professional team, but I like to think that we're all just really good friends. This is our library crew, just trying to keep a good sense of humor throughout the pandemic. And our leaders, we have Daniel here and Stacy. They are at the beginning of the pandemic in full PPE, ready to distribute that tech outside the building. Now, what I have here is a step-by-step process of what we've been doing. And I'm just going to let you go over this on your own time, and you can return to the slide if you need to later. But what I'm going to do is take you through a photo tour. So, of course, we had to receive the items from Internet Technology Department, and they brought them to us, you know, carts at a time, a piece at a time, but quickly. So we had Mac desktops, cameras and Chromebooks, Dell laptops, Workforce Solutions complex laptops that had special software for the students who needed that, webcams, headsets, hotspots. And the first thing we had to do when we received those items was clean them. And there Zaria is making sure she's getting the items cleaned up and ready to go. And we had to catalog these tech items. And because they did not belong to us, they belonged to the IT department, we had just gave them a short bib, just a short bibliography, a brief title. And there's Amanda. I'm sorry, that's Amanda there. Looks like she's cataloging a set of headphones. And then this is at the very beginning of the pandemic. You know, just the week before, you can see in the back, we were preparing for spring fling. It was a circus thing. And, you know, we were all, you know, had all of our energy going into that. And then all of a sudden it was a quick transition of getting ready for this tech distribution. And one of the first things we did was create an inventory spreadsheet. And Stacy is our spreadsheet queen, and she got that done for us. And you can see how she organized it with different tabs for computers and chargers, webcams, and peripherals. And then you can see how we had the different columns there to keep up. One of the most important features of this particular spreadsheet that we found over time was the notes column. So we could keep up with what items had already been returned to IT or what items had been damaged, things like that. Once we got them cleaned, cataloged, and on the spreadsheet for inventory purposes, we had to prep them for staging. And we did that with stretch wrap. You know, put the charger on the laptop and just use the stretch wrap to secure it safely as we could. And that was a little bit of an additional expense, but well worth it over time. And then we had to stage the inventory, and truly we staged it anywhere we could do so as safely and as practically as possible. So you can see here we have some Mac desktops on the floor of the Writing Center, which is inside of our library, but the Writing Center staff is all working off campus, so we appropriated their space for our use. And then we staged inventory anywhere we could, in boxes, on top of cabinets, on top of the archives files. And then we had to start receiving the request, and people, staff, faculty, students could request items a number of different ways. There was a COVID-19 hotline that our college set up on the website. They could simply call us at the CERC desk. They could send us an email. They could send us a text. And that's one of the first things our library director did for us within the first week of the pandemic, was establish a text line to give us folks in the library a direct line of communication to our patrons. And I think that has served a lot of people very well over the past year. Okay. And then once we received their request, we had to conduct a revised reference interview. And here I am in person with the law librarian there, pretending to have a reference interview, but often this took place over the phone. Essentially, you know, what do you need? What classes are you taking? What kind of software do you need? Do you have a webcam? Do you have enough internet connectivity? Things like that, because we wanted to make sure that everyone got what they needed in one trip. You know, times have been stressful enough. No one needs to go home and find out they don't have what they need. Okay, so we had another spreadsheet to catalog the people that we were serving, our patrons, to keep track of that. So I have a screenshot here of that spreadsheet with the identifying information redacted, but essentially it was who they were. It's library working with. They've contacted us, this is what they need, and then we would go in and let it, you know, document when we completed that request and whether or not we got a tech agreement signed, and we did with our items. And just you can see down here we have the different tabs of items out, items returned, and statistics. And I believe we've served almost 500 people. I know when I checked last month it was well over 400 people with I don't even know how many items, at least 400, but probably closer to that because it was multiple items at a time. So it's a pretty busy year. We recruited help. As I said, we had a couple of retirements and some folks working from home too, who weren't able to help with the hands-on day-to-day things. So, so for the large part at the beginning of the pandemic and during the summer, it was just Stacy and me. So we got help anywhere we could. And everybody pitched in as best they could. So once we have registered the new library patron, because you can't check anything out of the library unless you're registered, Zaria sends them a welcome to the library email. And here's a screenshot of that email. It's got their library card number highlighted in yellow with some helpful links that they may need as they begin to research and access resources from home. And then we would check those items out to the patron. It looks like Franny here is checking out a hotspot to one of our patrons. And then we send them a thank you for your request email. And here's just a sample script letting them know that we have the item, it has been checked out to them, and then when and where they can pick it up and when it's due, and the contact information there. Also, with the thank you for your request email, we attached a blank technology agreement to it so they could review it before they came in. And this is our technology agreement. We tried to keep it simple to one form with basic language that pretty much everybody could understand, that, you gotta take care of this equipment. And then we would prep the tech items for our patrons to pick up. You can see here, this is one of the tables and behind our circulation desk. We had these bags left over from some open house event from years ago. And then we found them when we were trying to make room to put the equipment. And we're like, oh, these are handy. We can use these. So we did. And you can see we've got bubble wrap there and tape and Sharpies. And we just put the items wrapped in bubble wrap inside the bag with the patron's name on, with their technology agreement form clipped to it to make sure that we would get their signature when they came in. And then we distributed the items from our circ desk, and you can see at our circulation desk, there's me and Zaria, and we've got, the sanitation items set up with the Lysol wipes and the antibacterial lotions, gloves, mask. And yeah, there we are, ready to distribute those items. At the beginning of the pandemic, we offered curbside pickup. So we had designated times that we would just sit there in front of the building and get people what they needed. And of course, when they pick up their items, they have to sign that technology agreement saying they're going to take care of it and return it, and the consequences and cost of the reimbursement cost if they're not able to do so, if it's damaged. And then we take that we scan that signed tech agreement and email the patron a copy of the signed agreement. And here is the copy of that email that they have the signed tech agreement for their records, and it lets them know when their items are due. Now, in the beginning, we offered an extension of the due date if they needed it for the following semester, but now at the end of this semester, we're recalling all equipment without any extensions offered, because we have to get an inventory, and then the IT department needs to do some software updates and things like that, contract renewal considerations. So we're going to be getting it all back soon. We also put a note in there to make sure they give return the items directly to us and not try to put it in the drop box or leave it outside the library door. Here's a sample of the signed technology agreement. I just put their last name there in the corner for easy reference, and their email down at the bottom. I just needed everything at my fingertips right there. I didn't want to have to look up anything when I was already moving as fast as I could. And I think that's been helpful. Now, I don't want you to be jealous of how I organize these tech agreements, but here's my filing system. We just kept them gem clipped face down. Patrons that still have tech, we've got them right there. And those who have returned their tech, we just shifted them to the other file. So tune in more for a lot more life hacks from, from our library. Now, when it got close to time to return those items, or the due dates were drawing near, we tried to be very proactive by sending out emails saying, hey, your item's due. If you need a renewal, you need to contact us. We did not do automatic renewals. We wanted to make sure the patron contacted us and knew that they had that equipment and they were still being responsible for it. And as I think Zaria is drafting a new email to send out later today or tomorrow, letting folks know that they need to get all those back in, because we got to get it back in to take care of it and do the things that need to happen. Okay. And so when folks return their tech items, many have been kind enough to return it in the same bag we checked it out and bring it directly to us. And we also did curbside pickup for folks who didn't want to come in the library, or at the first part of the pandemic, we just didn't allow anyone in our library. We went outside to meet them. And then some folks we had to chase down. We didn't hear from them, and the due date came and went. So we started sending out phone calls and asking folks about their overdue tech items, reminding them they needed to bring them in or renew them. Here is a sample text email script that we sent out to folks, letting them know their items were due and how they could contact us and get those items back in. And then for those, there was just a handful, maybe half a dozen, we still didn't hear from after the phone calls and the emails and the text. So we sent those folks a hard copy letter, and they responded to that one. So it was a little more time and effort and a little bit of an expense, but we managed to get, at the end of fall semester, we managed to either extend or get all of the inventory returned except for one, and we just had to charge that to their account. And so because we can't just let it walk away, it's too expensive. Okay, so there's Stacy and I are out there waiting for late returns, trying to give everybody the opportunity to get what they needed in. Now, when the items were returned, we would have to quarantine them. So in our library, we sectioned off the quiet section of the library because we were only limited to 10 patrons at a time. So we just kept the front of the library open to patrons. So in the quiet study rooms in the back of the library, we designated as quarantine areas for these items. So you can see we had 4 rooms, so we designated a room for each day. So there's Monday's door, and then a door with designated for each day of the week that were open Monday through Thursday. And then on the following week, we would go pull those items out and clean them up and set them out for the tech folks to come and check them out. And here's Chris. He stopped in to check the tech items to make sure that they were in good working order. And so then we could discharge them from the patron's account. And so that's what we did. And surprisingly enough, the tech items so far have been returned in good working order. We haven't really had any problems with too much damage or downloads or anything like that. But we were very clear when checking it out to them too, that what they could and could not do with the equipment. And so we discharge the items from the patron's account, and then send them the all clear email letting them know their account has been cleared and thanking them for their time. Then we clean the tech items. The cleaning never ends. You can see, I'm sure most of you can appreciate the same processes. You'll probably have similar tables with the cleaning supplies and PPE items set about. And we just prep the items back with stretch wrap and place them back in storage anywhere we could to keep them safe and ready to pull when we needed them again. And then rest and repeat. There's our work study with the llama, getting a little bit of rest. Throughout the entire process, it's just been coordination and communication. I mean, constant phone calls, text. I am so grateful that I can pick up the phone and talk with anyone in our tech department or send them a quick text and they respond just like that. It's just been a lot of working in tandem. Daniel or different members of the tech team would come down and just work with us right here in the library to make sure that we were able to provide our patrons what they needed, and as quickly as we could, and then get ready to do it all over again. I don't think that we're going to provide tech items over the summer. I'm not sure what the plan is for fall. I'm going to let Daniel respond to that if we even know yet. But we got through this past year and managed to help a lot of people get what they needed to get through the year. Does anybody have any questions for me? Again, I want to remind folks that the LibGuide for this is linked into the chat, and if you want to download any of those documents that are linked there, and you're welcome to do so. Okay, Stacy, are there any questions in chat?
No questions right now.
Okay, Daniel, you've been really spearheading this. Would you like to say anything about your experience of how this went? Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
mhm.
I think it went really well. I think um, we're presenting it as a comprehensive plan. This was not something that we did or we launched perfectly. There were a lot of mistakes immediately where we had realized that we had overlooked or didn't think through. And so we had to modify a lot of these things, like we keep going with the question of what did the student need, because a lot of times initially when we started this process did not, we just gave them a computer. They would just, and we did not solicit or ask them what course they were taking, and a lot of courses had specialized software, and that was why the Mac laptop, the desktops went out to the students, because they were used for a very specific class. The WSC laptops you had mentioned, they're higher end graphics cards to allow for CAD, so CAD students could get. So we had to load a myriad of software for tons of different programs. A lot of our students just needed something they could get on the internet with, or perform some sort of documentation, or create a document or a spreadsheet. Others were very specialized. So we had CAD that had to be loaded. We had PLC Top Labs, Pearson, Cengage, anything that would run on that, because that will not run on a Chromebook. So if we identified that, we would swap over to a Dell. Everybody, all the machines were connected to the domain. And so that's why we need to pull them in, because it's been about a year. We're starting to lose that access, and they don't get updates or Windows updates or any security updates if they're off campus or they're not connected to the domain. So we needed to pull them back, and that's what we're going through that process now. Um, Standard software, that was pretty much it. We didn't have, trying to think, and that's where Latrice really came in to play. So Latrice worked most of the pandemic, most of the time the last year remote working. And what she could do is she could VPN into the domain and into the machine inside the library. So there was no physical access necessary for IT to install whatever it was. But we had to get that from Zaria and Nia and Stacy and tell us what it was the student was saying they needed. So we updated um, some Flash things were not up to date. There were a few odds and ends like that, but for the most part, it was basically just a Windows 10. Other than the Chromebooks, they were just a Windows 10 basic domain with Chrome, Firefox, and any specialized software. I think it was about it. If any of y'all can remember anything, I think it was about as much specialized as we got.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. Terry, did that answer your question? We had that question on standard software in the chat as Daniel was talking. Okay, good. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That was
so
great.
like Daniel said, one of the biggest lessons we learned was that we really needed to ask questions before we handed, the machines out. We needed to make sure that we knew how they would be using whatever technology we were giving them, whether it was a Chromebook versus a traditional laptop. Do you need the webcam, or do you just need a machine that you can access the internet, log into Blackboard and that kind of thing?
We did have one little faux pas with the hotspot. We did
Mhm.
not have initially hotspots. So we had to order them, and I ordered them pretty quick from our vendor, which we have a contract in the state of North Carolina with Verizon. So we had ordered 50 hotspots using some funding that we had, and it took months and months for these to come in. We were just, every day people were needing this, students were needing it, faculty and staff, everyone was needing a hotspot, and we finally got them in. And then we started distributing them, and that worked out really well. And then a few of them started coming back, and we got a message from Verizon maybe about a month ago. It said there's a recall on the battery. So then we've had to, pull them back. And that was another reason we need to pull those particular devices back. How much extra funding was needed to purchase the items we didn't have? That's a great question. So our institution got an anonymous donation for 6 figures, which is about 100K. And we used that to do an initial purchase. I know it's super often come out of nowhere. They contacted our president, said, how can we help? I immediately posted a list for 100K. The CARES Act funding come in to play. But for the tech itself, we did not. We did purchase some products like the Chromebooks we did not have in stock, but most of the tech that we're using for checkout, we pulled from lab carts and other facilities that were physical that weren't being used. And anywhere that with those WSC laptops, they're in carts in that building. And so we went to those carts and just pulled them flat out and re-inventoried them through IT, and then got them over to the library so they could catalog them and check them out. So we basically just stole from our own resources internally to allow other people to use them remotely. And we're moving in the direction to on-campus full and fall. That's kind of the direction we're looking at. And it seems like all is moving that direction. So I need to put that equipment back in place. And that's why I need the summer months to be able to get all those labs stood up, get everything updated, and just damage control. And some of these are a wide range of how much it would cost to replace the odds and ends. And, it's really just meant to make them responsible for it. And so, and we've had just a few incidents here and there, but nothing major. So we will see in the next week or so how much damage we've incurred.
And something we've learned in terms of like a lesson learned type thing is with the hotspots. Like Daniel said, we did have hotspots who had were recalled for the batteries, but one of the things we found is that we did not keep track of the individual phone numbers assigned to the hotspots. And so that means if we need to turn one off remotely, it's going to be difficult for us to figure out which one to turn off. Like if one doesn't come back, if someone decides, they just keep it without returning it and they don't respond to us, we have the option to end that contract or shift it so that hotspot is turned off and is not usable. But we're going to have a little bit of difficulty determining which hotspot goes with which phone number. And that was one of those lessons learned because we have never as an institution loaned hotspots, whether through the library or other means. The other thing that that we are having to consider now is where is the institutional responsibility for providing hotspots and wireless to faculty who may live in areas with low connectivity. So we know we have faculty and students who we serve two counties. We serve Alexander County and Catawba County, and we know students in Alexander County, all of our students don't have access to the internet. And that means also all of our faculty don't have access to the internet. And it was very easy to make the decision, while we're in the middle of this pandemic to provide them with a hotspot. But now that we're shifting, back to a more on-campus model, institutionally, we have to determine where our responsibility is in terms of making sure that our faculty and staff, in particular, have access to internet from home. And so that's a conversation that has evolved and will keep evolving, I think, from this process.
And as I said, I'm not a tech expert. I don't know. I've learned a lot over the past year, and there's still so much to learn. But, I was thinking, well, we've purchased the hotspots. Why can't we continue to loan them out? But it's more complicated than that because of, Daniel, you were telling us we had to extend a service agreement, or there's a monthly expense involved.
So the good thing with Verizon is we don't have necessarily, we are month to month. And right now our bill is multiple $1,000s a month for all that cell service. And so we're using the CARES Act funding to offset that to the institutional cost, because obviously we don't have state funding for that. So there is a certain amount of time of life that's going to expire. And so we're approaching that, and we're kind of trying to reshift some of those final assets to get other resources longer term. So one of the things that we did with our federal funding was purchase, because we had never faced anything like this. A lot of faculty were on campus and they had desktops, and so they had never had to actually deliver content remotely. So one of the things that we did in the with our money is to purchase a significant number of laptops to scale up. But one of the deficiencies we found is, well, they've got the equipment, but they don't have the access. So we're trying to figure out how we can either continue that or work with it. And we want to keep it as long as we can. But for one thing, we just need to get this particular hotspots cycled out just for the recall. And then moving forward, the institution will decide if we're going to extend, if we're going to keep going. And if we can, that'd be great. But it is a multiple $1,000 a month bill that I don't know that we can continue to hold for too much longer.
With our topic, our theme of transformation, Daniel, do you now know, or are you currently thinking about how technology decisions will be made a little differently, perhaps moving forward?
We had wanted to kind of rethink what we were doing to begin with, but this certainly thrust our decision timeline, or truncated it. Basically, we needed to come up with a plan for this in the future for the institution. We knew that we were deficient holistically from an equipment standpoint. I mean, from every facet of the institution, we're always kind of chasing this rabbit, using the funding that we have available to chip away at it. And so with the CARES Act, our leadership and the president decided to really just scale up everyone in case we were to need to go to mobile again. So faculty, staff, all employees went to a more mobile and more powerful laptop that we had ever deployed up to this point of the history of the institution. So where we had a lot of desktops, now we've migrated those over to laptops because we never know when we may need to be mobile or have some sort of event to shift like this. And we didn't want to be caught because a lot of our systems and subsystems that run the domain, the local network environment, they were not ready for this type of shift. And so we had to, technology had to really shift its resources from a system standpoint to allow that type of connectivity. Email had to be expanded, VPNs had to be expanded, just access in general to keep the day-to-day operation of the college moving forward. So now we're thinking about those systems in a different way because of the pandemic to make them more, I don't want to say cloud-based, but at least a little bit more accessible remotely, in a secure frame. We also launched multi-factor authentication during the midst of the pandemic to add security measures because of cybersecurity concerns, and that threat, as it evolves and continues to be a threat long into the future. So we're trying to protect our assets, but also make everything as accessible as possible.
Do we have any other questions?
I'm curious. Zaria joined us in October, and we're happy to have her. I just want to hear if she has anything she'd like to say, or if she has learned anything significant through this process.
Yeah, so I'm very much on the front end of this process, and even just sitting here listening to you guys, I'm learning so much about what happened during the beginning of the pandemic or the ongoing issues. Like, I just send the emails. I just check stuff out, and now I know.
So Zaria says that she just sends the emails and she
Yeah.
just checks it out, but it's a little more than that. Zaria is the face of our library, and so she is the calm, competent, beautiful smile and she's the person who brings all of that to the front desk when you either call or walk in. So she is much more than the email sender.
Much more. Yes. She interviewed during the summer when we were stressful. And that was one of her attributes that we enjoyed so much, was her calm demeanor, because we knew she was walking into a stressful situation, and she's done beautifully. One more thing I'd like to add is what I learned early on. It was initially a little bit of a conflict, was, librarians speak a different language than the tech folks. So we had to learn how to communicate with one another. I'd have folks ask me, do you have something with VPN? And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. And Latrice would be so patient with me. She'd call me and she said, I'll need you to go wake this laptop up. I'm working on it remotely. And I'm like, go to sleep. I don't know. What does that mean? So I think just through, a very shared vision of what we have to serve our patrons, we just, we overcame, got to know one another a little better, and learned learned. Daniel Connor taught me how to reset a hotspot over the phone with a paper clip. I was like, he was very patient, telling me step by step, and I was like, oh. So yeah, it's been an experience. I noticed that a few people joined us just a few moments ago. If you're interested in looking at the presentation or seeing the documents that we used during the presentation, there's a LibGuide linked into the chat feature. You're welcome to copy that and use it if you need it later on. Does anyone else have any questions? Well, I'd like to thank you all for your time. If you need to know anything or want to reach out to us, you have our contact information. We'll be glad to talk with you. Zaria, Stacy, thank you so much for your time. And Daniel, I truly appreciate you joining us. That really made it. Thanks so much. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.